Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, ONeill Hughes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, with all the talk and hype around the digital transformation revolution in service at the moment, I invited Michael Blumberg onto the show to talk about how he is helping businesses overcome all of these digital challenges and opportunities. Now, Michael R. Blumberg is the president of the Blumberg Advisory Group and a recognised expert in the field of service and reverse logistics in high technology industry. And he's helping businesses with the growing of their top-line revenue, marketing and selling extended service programs, and servitization of manufacturing and the Uberization of Service. So buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Philadelphia so we can speak with Michael Blumberg about how we all need to adapt and grow to stay in business. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Michael. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Well, Neil, thank you very much for inviting me onto the show. I'm a management consultant and a business coach. Basically, what I do is I help executives in high-tech service companies. So what a high-tech service company is, if you think about any piece of equipment you own, like your appliances in your house, when those break down, you need to call the manufacturer or the person who sold you equipment, and they send out a service technician to resolve your problem. So those are the kinds of companies I work with. And what I help them do is solve challenges to growing their business and operating on a profitable basis and ensuring they deliver service at a high level of productivity, efficiency, and quality.
Now, it seems like there's just no escaping the digital transformation revolution in service at the moment. And a great example of this is the servitization of manufacturing, which is something I've recently been reading more and more about. But for anyone listening that's new to this area, can you expand on this based on your own insights?
Servitization is about the journey a company goes through as they transform from being a product-centric company to where service is an afterthought or a necessary evil to one that generates a sizable portion of the revenue from services. Basically, where services is the business as opposed to the product. It's the ultimate example of servitization, which is probably the end point of the journey, is where you're delivering product as a service. This is sort of the razor and the razor blade scenario, where the manufacturer gives away the razor in exchange for the recurring revenue stream that comes from purchasing the razor blades. Instead of razor blades, we're talking about services, or more specifically, outcome-based services. That's outcome-based services. An example would be paying for the usage or results produced by an elevator instead of buying the actual piece of equipment. In other words, paying every time somebody goes up and down on the elevator. In order to deliver on this promise, as the provider of the outcome, you have to implement a broad array of digital technology to ensure the equipment is up and running whenever the customer needs to access it. Downtime is problematic, so you need to have these technologies like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, etc., to ensure high uptime and availability of the equipment.
Now, the ethos at the moment seems to be that businesses need to disrupt or be disrupted, especially after the rise of services such as Uber, and comparing that to the demise of household names such as Blockbuster Video and Kodak, and the list goes on and on. But what trends are you noticing around the so-called Uberization of service?
First, let's put the term Uberization into context. When I hear the term Uberization, I think of providing customers with a real-time, on-demand, always-on, always-connected solution. Other terms that people associate with Uberization are agility and a frictionless experience. Agility in terms of the ability to scale very quickly, and frictionless is where you're eliminating the touch points that would delay the amount of time it takes to complete a transaction. You're eliminating those touch points. We also might think of a Uber solution where we're incorporating aspects of the sharing economy or the gig economy. That's when we think about Uber drivers. They're operating in the gig economy or sharing economy. So now let's look at the specific trends that relate to Uberization that are occurring in the field service industry. One of these trends is utilizing Internet of Things to monitor equipment performance and send notification alerts about the condition and performance of the machine. Another example is leveraging artificial intelligence to interpret these notifications and identify and diagnose the problems and take corrective actions. If the corrective action is required, then part of the Uberization is to dispatch a field service engineer automatically, sending a dispatch order electronically to the ERP or CRM system, and then using dynamic scheduling software to assign the right person for the job based on the needs of the job. It also means turning to a freelance management system platform to source and dispatch freelance technicians on demand in order to scale the capacity during peak seasons or periods. Another trend is using augmented reality, virtual reality, or mixed reality to provide less experienced field engineers with the expertise they need to resolve technical problems they haven't encountered before. And the last example is relying on big data and analytics to optimize resource planning and allocation issues. For example, making sure that you have the right people at the right place at the right time, or you have the right parts on hand or the right tools.
Most leaders with any degree of self-awareness should have learned a few lessons from the others in the last few years. But do you think that they must adapt and grow to stay in business now still?
Neil, that's an excellent question. And the short answer is yes. The long answer is I think they just need to do so more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Change is coming at such a rapid pace that leaders can't afford to rest on their laurels or past successes that their company had. Past successes don't always guarantee future performance in the service industry. You must anticipate what your customers want and need and give it to them.
One of the things I was going to say as well, I mean, where should people actually begin? I mean, in your opinion, what are the actual requirements for growth and those tangible results?
Well, you need to know where you are and where you should be relative to the rest of your industry. You might want to benchmark yourself against competition and also against your customer expectations. What do they expect and are you meeting it? If you really want to excel in terms of growth, you should think outside the box. That's another way of saying think outside of your industry or your market. And what you can do is ask your customers what they consider to be a great service experience and what made it great, and use that as the ideal that you aspire to become. For example, I've done work where my clients say that their best service experience was going to Nordstrom's. And Nordstrom's is a department store in the United States, and it's a very high-touch experience. So in some of my clients that are providing services, that's what their customer tell them. And so they develop their growth strategy based on that. Others, they think of the best experiences as McDonald's, where it's very standardized, fast food, comes in a very short period of time. That's the standard that they strive to become. So that's what I mean by thinking out of the box. Don't just ask about what your customers expect from others in your industry, but look outside. And of course, once you have all this knowledge in hand, you need to have a plan. And the plan should be data-driven and tied to key performance indicators to measure success. And lastly, you need accountability. You need someone to hold you accountable, and you need to hold your team accountable, and everyone in the team has to be accountable.
Now, this is a digital age where companies are pretty much forced to be faster, stronger, and better than their competitors. But one thing I really notice as well is a 5-year strategy is typically out of date within 18 months or less. So in your opinion, is there a way to accelerate a growth rate in an actual shorter period of time than that traditional 5-year strategy?
Sure. Let's look at one of the reasons why sometimes it takes a long time to produce results. There's a lot of uncertainty, and people don't know what to do, and they're not sure they have the right skills or the resources, so they spend a lot of time trying to figure it out. They're plodding along, and that's what slows things down. And also, the environment we live in today, in the business world we live in today, we have a lot of technology at our disposal to help us do things much quicker. In the past, we didn't have that, so it took a while for information to be distributed, disseminated, and synthesized within the organization. Now that all can be done much faster. But even more specific to that, what a service leader must do to accelerate the growth is to first have a crystal clear vision about what their outcome is. Second, they have to have laser-like focus that they're going to achieve this outcome. So know what they're going to do, be absolutely focused on getting that done. Have a sense of urgency still within themselves, a sense of urgency, and within their team, a sense of urgency about getting things done. Fourth, accountability to the mission at hand. And fifth, a mindset of certainty and also a spirit of resourcefulness. In other words, you may not have the resources, but you have to find a way to get them. If you don't have the tools, strategies, and tactics to get the job done, then get them. The problem is that many companies have them, they just don't know they have them, and they're not leveraging what they have. And if they really don't have them, and they don't have the money or the capital to get them, then they have to learn how to be resourceful to get things done. Many times companies get stuck in the mindset that things aren't going to change because they don't have the capital. They really need to understand they have to have the resourcefulness. And they have the resourcefulness, they'll find how to get things done. If they're lucky, they'll find the capital too.
I think also staying up to speed with tech trends now has become more important than ever. So something else I wanted to fire out to you there is, what tech trends have you noticed that business leaders need to be aware of, in your opinion?
Oh, well, there's a ton of them I noticed. Yeah. Some of them we chatted about earlier, but one is the Internet of Things, mobility solutions, cloud computing, this idea of using augmented reality, virtual reality, or mixed reality to provide a more richer experience to people in terms of making the decisions about a product or getting service and support of the product, using that technology to provide information, video, text, etc. Another trend is artificial intelligence and machine-based learning, big data and analytics, marketing automation, which is really big if you're going to sell services. And an offshoot of that is the trend of using configure, price, and quotation tools to accelerate your pricing practice, making changes to your pricing, giving your customers what they want in a contract, using that CPQ tool to automate that. And lastly, 3D printing. We see this emerging in the services industry, where you could use 3D printing to print out parts, which you end up moving from being a asset-heavy organization that's holding a lot of parts to using 3D printing technology to getting the parts on demand when you need them. So now you become more of an asset-light company.
Absolutely. I mean, so many of what you just mentioned there have got the potential to be incredible game changers for businesses. And there's so much pressure on them to do the right thing or to stand out from the crowd and be unique. But how does one find their own X factor and achieve that exponential growth?
Well, your X factor is something you are known for. Yeah. It's something usually you can do better than anyone else. When they hear that thing that you do, they think of you. And when they hear your name, they think of that thing. And often the X factor becomes your company's tagline. For example, FedEx's original tagline is what it absolutely positively has to get you there overnight. That became their X factor. And if you were a manager making a decision about sending a package out, and you knew you needed to get it there, needed absolute certainty, you had to get it there the next morning by 10 a.m., you chose FedEx. So what can a company do to find their X factor? Well, they need to ask themselves a couple questions. First is, what business are they in today? Next is, what business are they really in? And after that, who is their customer and what do they really need? Next question is, what business do we need to be in order to ensure that our customers are provided with what they need? And of course, you need to put in place the strategies, tactics, and plans to achieve this outcome. So one example that really sticks in my head about how a company created an X factor is a conversation that I had with one of the senior executives from Cone Corporation. They'd gone through a significant digital transformation and have found their X factor. And in doing so, they basically started with what business they were in. And they're a manufacturer of elevators, escalators, and auto walks, moving sidewalks. And there are a number of companies that do this. But they realized that the business that they're really in is moving people in a building. But they understood that what they really needed to do to serve their customer was improve the workflow of urban life. So it wasn't just about moving people. It's about moving them efficiently. It's about avoiding crowds. It's about seeing who's in the crowd. It's about supporting the security guards in the lobby of the building. It's about making sure that people get to their meetings on time and they're not waiting a long time for the elevator. So when they understood that this was their X factor, that became their tagline, and it enabled them to develop new and innovative products and services that serve that need of improving the flow of urban life. As a result, they've been able to grow their revenue, increase their market share, and improve their profit margins.
Now, you've achieved incredible success by helping other people and other businesses. But how are you planning to adapt and grow and evolve your own business over the next 18 months?
Well, I'm jumping on the digital transformation wave myself. Yeah. So I'm using digital technology to make myself more visible and accessible to business leaders. So doing this podcast, in my opinion, is one way of being on the digital transformation wave. I'm also using technology so people can Schedule appointments with me online, taking out the friction that often occurs when you're trying to set an appointment with somebody, going back and forth with emails and phone calls. To me, that's very frustrating for me as a person trying to make the appointment. I can think as it's just as frustrating for the person on the other end. So that's another example. And I'm using digital technologies to create new service offerings that can be delivered over the internet, like online courses and communities where people come to learn and share and exchange knowledge. Establishing joint ventures and alliances with systems integrators, software developers, and other consultants to deliver a single point solution to my customers and help them solve issues ranging from business strategy to training their field engineers on how to use, for example, augmented reality. So we're basically going from issues facing the boardroom down into what needs to be done in the field and using technology to facilitate and enhance that experience.
You mentioned online courses there. What kind of online courses are you doing? Do you have any more coming on the pipeline?
Yeah, I have one course now on service marketing, on how companies who are really product focused and they've been selling products for years and they're trying to sell services, but they're having struggles. This course helps them understand about what they need to do, how they think differently about selling services, and what kinds of strategies and tactics they need to put in place. I have other courses coming online very similar to that. It's going to go in deeper dive into selling services. It's going to look at how do you overcome objections. Also, how do you configure and price and sell extended warranties.
Excellent.
There's examples, yeah.
Well, a huge thank you for coming on the show today. But before I do let you go,
my pleasure.
Can you remind the listeners of your website details and also how they can contact you if they have any questions about anything that we've spoken about today?
You can visit me on my website, and that's www.blumberg-advisor.com. You can also subscribe to my blog. That's www.michaelrblumberg.net. If you want to contact me directly, if you have something urgent you want me to look at or read or talk to me about, you can email me, and that's michaelb@blumberg-advisor.com. Or if we really want to take advantage of the digital transformation that I'm undergoing, go to www.callmichael.net and you'll access my calendar and you can pick the time and date that's most convenient for me to call you back. And lastly, I want to tell you about my LinkedIn handle, which is Blumberg1, and my Twitter handle, which is @Blumberg1.
Fantastic. Well, a huge thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. I really appreciate it. I think the digital transformation is a massive piece at the moment and all businesses are talking about it. And if they're not, they need to be. So more than anything, just a big thank you for taking that time out. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Neil. It's my pleasure, and I'm happy to come on your show anytime.
I think all businesses have a requirement for growth, but to do this, they have to adapt and grow to stay in business. Now, this means making the most of valid market data and intelligence, knowledge of best practices and industry benchmarks, as well as well-defined KPIs and a clear roadmap or strategic plan forward. And I think it's also important to remember that you can accelerate a growth rate in a shorter period of time by working with a strategic advisor or business coach who possess all those skills that your organisation is missing. Having spoken with Michael there, it's great to hear how he has built his success by helping companies find their X Factor, and I wish him all the best for the future. So a big thank you to Michael for coming on the show today, and an even bigger thank you to you, my audience, for tuning in. But it's time for me to go now, I'm afraid, so until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.